peaceful afternoon in the park takes an unexpected turn when a gang targets the wrong woman, an elite Navy SEAL who turns their arrogance into humiliation. What happens next will leave you speechless. Subscribe now for more stories that inspire and empower. The sun was at its peak, casting a warm golden glow over Lincoln Park, a sprawling suburban escape just outside Sacramento, California. The park was alive with the chatter of families, the rhythmic footsteps of joggers, and the occasional bark of an eager dog. Among the crowd, Tasha moved with a quiet confidence, her casual attire, a fitted navy sweatshirt and black joggers, blending seamlessly with the afternoon bustle. She carried herself with an effortless grace, a demeanor shaped by years of discipline and training, though no one would guess it by looking at her. To them, she was just another woman enjoying a peaceful day outdoors. The air smelled of freshly cut grass and faint hints of barbecue drifting from nearby picnic areas. Tasha smiled faintly as she adjusted her earbuds, the soundtrack of her morning workout still playing softly in her ears. Her path took her toward a quieter stretch of the park, where towering oaks provided much-needed shade from the California sun. It was her favorite route, a place to reflect, recharge, and enjoy the simplicity of her surroundings. But not everyone in the park shared her calm intentions. Leaning against the side of a graffiti-tagged bench, a group of 5 men lingered. Their loud voices and exaggerated gestures had already drawn wary glances from passers-by, but no one lingered long enough to intervene. They were the kind of men who thrived on intimidation, their presence a toxic cloud of arrogance and entitlement. For months they'd become infamous in the area for targeting anyone who didn't look like them. And now their attention shifted to Tasha. "She thinks she's better than us," one of them muttered, his voice low but dripping with malice. The others snickered, exchanging knowing looks. Tasha, still unaware of their stares, paused near a water fountain, wiping a bead of sweat from her brow. The gang's leader, a wiry man with a shaved head and tattoos running up his forearms, nudged one of his friends. "Watch this," he said, his tone laced with mischief. The group moved closer, their movements casual but deliberate. Tasha noticed the shift immediately, the way the energy around her changed. She glanced up and saw them approaching, their grins wide and predatory. Her instincts sharpened. Years of training taught her to observe, assess, and prepare, all in a split second. But she didn't react outwardly. Not yet. "Hey, sweetheart," one of them called out, his voice dripping with mock sweetness. "Where are you off to in such a hurry?" Tasha didn't answer. She adjusted her earbuds as if she hadn't heard him, keeping her expression neutral. Ignoring them, she resumed her walk, her eyes scanning for potential escape routes or obstacles. But they weren't going to let her off that easily. The leader stepped in front of her, blocking her path with a smug grin. "Don't be rude now. We're just trying to have a conversation." Tasha stopped, meeting his gaze for the first time. Her expression remained calm, but her eyes carried a warning. The gang exchanged glances, emboldened by what they perceived as an easy target. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Tasha held her ground, standing as still as a stone. Her heart was steady, her breathing controlled, a stark contrast to the rising tension around her. She'd been in far worse situations, ones where survival required every ounce of her training. These men, with their cheap bravado and ill intentions, didn't rattle her, but she knew better than to underestimate anyone. The leader tilted his head, mistaking her calm demeanor for fear. "What's the matter?" he said, his grin widening. "Cat got your tongue?" Behind him, his friends laughed, their voices loud enough to attract glances from joggers and cyclists passing by. But no one stopped. No one intervened. That was the thing about public confrontations. Most people preferred to stay out of it, hoping someone else would step in. Tasha finally spoke, her voice even but firm. "You need to back up, now." The leader raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. "Oh, is that right? And what if I don't?" He took a step closer, invading her space. Her mind worked quickly, mapping out every detail of her surroundings. To her right, her mother and child were heading toward the playground. To her left, an older couple sat on a bench, pretending not to notice what was happening. Tasha shifted slightly, angling herself to keep the gang in view while protecting the bystanders. "You don't want to do this," she said, her tone steady but carrying an unmistakable edge. "Don't want to do what?" one of the others chimed in, a lanky man with a nervous laugh. "We're just talking." The leader smirked. "Yeah, sweetheart, we're just trying to be friendly." Tasha didn't blink. "This is your last warning. Walk away." The smirk vanished. The leader wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by someone who looked like Tasha. He glanced over his shoulder at his crew, who were watching with a mix of amusement and anticipation. He had an audience now, and he wasn't about to back down. "You got a lot of mouth for someone standing here alone," he said, his voice dropping to a low growl. Alone. That word hung in the air. He thought she was vulnerable, defenseless. He thought wrong. The leader reached out, his hand brushing against her arm in a gesture meant to intimidate. It was a mistake. In one fluid motion, Tasha stepped back and out of his reach. Her movements were subtle but calculated, forcing him to stumble forward awkwardly. The sudden shift caught him off guard, and his friend's laughter turned into a mix of surprise and confusion. "Yo, what was that?" one of them muttered, his confidence wavering for the first time. The leader straightened, his face flushed with embarrassment. "She's got jokes," he said, trying to regain control of the situation. "But I'm done playing." The group began closing in, their movements less casual now. The mood had shifted entirely. What started as a game had turned into something more sinister. Tasha took a deep breath, centering herself. Her military training came flooding back, each lesson etched into her muscle memory. She didn't need to throw the first punch, she never did. But if they made a move, she'd be ready. Around them, the park seemed to grow quieter, as if the air itself was holding its breath. People nearby started pulling out their phones, sensing that something was about to happen. "You're making a mistake," Tasha said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. The leader sneered, taking another step closer. "The only mistake here is you thinking we're going to let you walk away." The circle closed around Tasha, their sneers and taunts dripping with overconfidence. They thought they had her outnumbered, an easy target in broad daylight. But Tasha was far from easy. Her calm gaze flicked between each of them, calculating their movements, their weaknesses, and their levels of aggression. The leader lunged first, a sloppy attempt to grab her shoulder. Tasha sidestepped effortlessly, her left arm deflecting his grasp as she used his momentum against him. He stumbled forward, nearly losing his footing, and his friends burst into laughter. But Tasha wasn't laughing. She moved into a defensive stance, balanced and ready, her eyes locked on the rest of the group. "Whoa, she's got moves," one of them jeered, though his laughter was tinged with uncertainty. The second man, the lanky one with the nervous laugh, stepped up next. His movements were hesitant, his confidence wavering after seeing the leader's failed attempt. He swung a hand toward her, aiming for a shove. But Tasha caught his wrist mid-air. In a single swift motion, she twisted his arm and guided him to the ground with controlled force. He yelped in pain, writhing on the grass as Tasha released him. "Stay down," she warned, her voice calm but commanding. The remaining three hesitated, exchanging uneasy glances. The bystanders who had gathered at a distance began murmuring, their phones raised to capture the scene. The gang's confidence was crumbling, but they weren't ready to back down yet, not with an audience watching. "She's just lucky," one of them muttered, stepping forward. He was stockier than the others, with fists clenched tightly at his sides. He swung wildly, his punch fueled more by anger than precision. Tasha ducked, her reflexes razor-sharp. She countered with a swift strike to his midsection, knocking the wind out of him. He doubled over, gasping, and fell to his knees. The leader, regaining his composure, shouted, "What the hell are you guys doing? She's one woman." "She's trained," the lanky one groaned from the ground, clutching his wrist. The leader's face twisted with rage. His pride was on the line, and he wasn't about to let it end like this. He lunged at Tasha again, this time swinging a fist toward her face. She blocked it with her forearm, pivoting to the side and delivering a controlled strike to his leg. He buckled, dropping to one knee with a curse. "You should have listened when I told you to back off," Tasha said, her voice steady. The remaining two hesitated, clearly unsure whether to continue or cut their losses. The stocky one on his knees wheezed, "She's not worth it, man. Let's just go." But the leader wasn't listening. His face was red with humiliation, and he scrambled to his feet, charging at her like a bull. Tasha sidestepped again, tripping him with a calculated sweep of her leg. He hit the ground hard, the impact reverberating through the quieting park. A murmur rippled through the onlookers, their shock evident. They hadn't expected this outcome. 5 men, all brought down by a single woman who hadn't even broken a sweat. The last man standing glanced around nervously, his resolve evaporating. "I'm out," he muttered, backing away slowly. Tasha relaxed her stance slightly, her gaze following him as he retreated. But she didn't fully lower her guard. Situations like this could turn in an instant, and she wasn't about to take any chances. "You think you're tough, huh?" The leader spat from the ground, struggling to get up. His bravado was wearing thin, replaced by frustration and humiliation. Tasha stepped closer, her presence commanding. She didn't need to shout or threaten. Her calm confidence said everything. "You had your chance to walk away. You made your choice. Now stay down and wait for the police." The sound of approaching sirens pierced the air, and the leader's bravado finally cracked. He slumped back against the grass, his chest heaving as he glared up at her. The crowd, emboldened by the presence of law enforcement, began to cheer and applaud. Someone shouted, "She's a hero!" while others snapped photos and videos of the scene. Tasha didn't acknowledge the attention. Her focus remained on the gang, ensuring none of them made a sudden move before the officers arrived. The sirens grew louder, and the first patrol car screeched to a stop at the park entrance. 2 officers stepped out, scanning the crowd before their eyes landed on the scene near the shaded trail. The sight of 5 men sprawled on the ground, surrounded by a growing crowd, made them quicken their pace. "What's going on here?" one officer called out, his hand hovering near his radio. A bystander chimed in, excitement spilling from her voice. "She took them down, all of them. They were harassing her, and she defended herself." The officer's eyes flicked to Tasha, standing tall and composed, her hands relaxed at her sides. She looked entirely in control, as though the chaos around her hadn't fazed her one bit. The men on the ground, however, were a stark contrast, disheveled, bruised, and visibly shaken. The leader groaned, clutching his leg where Tasha had swept him off his feet. "She attacked us," he barked, trying to regain some semblance of control. "We didn't even touch her." Tasha didn't flinch. Her voice was calm but firm as she addressed the officers. "They approached me with clear intentions to intimidate and escalate. I warned them multiple times to back off. When they made physical contact, I defended myself." The officer studying her narrowed his eyes, clearly assessing her demeanor. "And you're trained?" he asked, his tone more curious than accusatory. Tasha reached into her pocket and pulled out her ID, handing it over. "Tasha Harper, United States Navy SEAL." The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, a ripple of surprise and admiration spreading through the onlookers. The officer's eyebrows lifted as he examined the ID, then handed it back. His tone shifted immediately to one of respect. "Ma'am, are you injured?" "I'm fine," Tasha replied evenly, though she didn't relax. Her eyes remained on the gang, who were now shrinking under the weight of the situation. The second officer stepped forward, gesturing to the group on the ground. "You all need to stay where you are. We're going to need statements from everyone here." The leader opened his mouth to protest, but the officer silenced him with a look. "Unless you want to add resisting arrest to the charges, I suggest you sit tight." Tasha stepped back, allowing the officers to take over. Around her, the crowd buzzed with energy, their phones capturing every angle of the unfolding scene. A man in his 40s approached, his phone still recording. "That was incredible," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. "The way you handled them. It was like something out of a movie." Tasha offered a faint smile but said nothing. She wasn't seeking recognition or praise. Her actions were driven by instinct and principle, not a desire for attention. As more officers arrived to help secure the scene, the crowd began to disperse, though many lingered at a distance, reluctant to leave entirely. A teenage girl approached hesitantly, her eyes wide with admiration. "Excuse me," she said softly, "but how did you learn to do all that?" Tasha turned to her, her expression softening. "Years of training and a lot of discipline," she said. "But the most important thing is knowing when to stand up for yourself and when to walk away." The girl nodded, clearly absorbing every word. "You're amazing," she said, before stepping back into the crowd. As the officers escorted the gang to the waiting patrol cars, the leader glared at Tasha one last time. "This isn't over," he hissed, his voice low enough that only she could hear. Tasha met his gaze, her expression unshaken. "Oh, it is. For you, it's over." The door slammed shut, and the patrol car pulled away, leaving the park quiet once again. The crowd thinned, though a few lingered to thank Tasha or simply stare in awe at the woman who had turned the tables on her aggressors. The officer who had taken her statement approached, offering a small nod. "We'll follow up if we need anything else, Ms. Harper. Thank you for your cooperation and for staying calm in a situation that could have gone much worse." Tasha nodded, slipping her ID back into her pocket. "It's what I was trained to do." As the last patrol car vanished from sight, Tasha turned back toward the shaded trail, her footsteps steady and deliberate. The park had returned to its usual rhythm, but the atmosphere felt different, charged with the unspoken echoes of what had just transpired. She paused near a bench, taking a deep breath. The adrenaline that had carried her through the encounter began to fade, replaced by a quiet resolve. For Tasha, this wasn't just another confrontation. It was a reminder of the world she lived in, a world that often demanded strength and composure in the face of ignorance and hate. A woman with silver-streaked hair approached hesitantly, holding the hand of a young boy. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said softly, "for standing up to them, for showing all of us what courage looks like." Tasha offered a small, genuine smile. "It wasn't just for me," she replied. "It was for anyone who's ever been made to feel small or powerless." The woman nodded, her eyes glistening. "You're an inspiration, truly." As they walked away, Tasha reflected on the moment. She didn't set out to be an inspiration or a symbol. Her actions were born of necessity, rooted in her belief that no one should have to face intimidation or harm simply for existing. She sat on the bench, letting the warmth of the sun wash over her. Her mind drifted back to the teenage girl's question. How did you learn to do all that? The answer wasn't just about training. It was about choice. Every day, Tasha chose to rise above fear, to use her strength not just for herself, but for others. Around her, the park thrummed with life again. Children laughing, dogs barking, and families sharing quiet moments together. It was a stark contrast to the tension from earlier, a testament to how quickly peace could be restored when the right choices were made. The events of the day weren't just about a group of men trying to assert power they didn't deserve. They were about the ripple effect of courage. Every bystander who had witnessed the confrontation, every person who had recorded it, would carry that story forward. Maybe it would inspire someone else to stand their ground, to find strength in their own convictions. Tasha stood, brushing off her hands. The day wasn't over, and there was still so much to do. But as she walked away, she carried with her a sense of purpose, a reminder that sometimes The greatest battles aren't fought in distant lands, but right here, in the everyday moments where bravery is needed most. Life is full of moments that test our strength, our courage, and our character. Tasha's story is a powerful reminder that standing up for what's right isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. If her courage inspired you, share this story and let others know that one person's bravery can make all the difference. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us of the power of resilience and the impact of standing tall in the face of adversity.